Breaking news. A political earthquake in Australia. Anthony Albanese clinches historic victory amid global uncertainty. In a stunning turn of political events that has sent ripples across the globe, Australia has once again placed its trust in Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. This resounding re-election not only marks a significant personal triumph for Albanese, but also carves his name into the annals of Australian political history as the first Prime Minister in over 2 decades to secure 2 consecutive terms. What makes this electoral outcome even more remarkable is the manner in which it unfolded, against a backdrop of international tension, domestic economic pressures, and the surprising shadow cast by American politics, particularly the return of Donald Trump's aggressive trade policies. Albanese's victory has been described as decisive, if not overwhelming. Political commentators and analysts alike had expected a close race, one that would require coalition maneuvering or at least hard-fought negotiations with independents and smaller parties. But instead, the Labour Party surged ahead with commanding force. According to projections by the ABC, Australia's national broadcaster and one of the most trusted sources in political reporting, Labour secured approximately 85 seats, far surpassing the 76 needed to form a majority government in the House of Representatives. This level of dominance offers Albanese the kind of parliamentary control that allows for bold legislative moves, if he can hold his coalition together and deliver on his promises. Meanwhile, Peter Dutton, the opposition leader and standard-bearer of the Conservative Party, suffered a defeat more symbolic and shattering than a mere loss of electoral tally. Not only did the coalition fail to recapture leadership, but Dutton himself lost his individual seat, a political blow that leaves his party without a clear direction and leader. This result was unthinkable at the start of the campaign. Polls at the time suggested the Conservatives were in a strong position with a clear path to victory. But the political winds shifted, and they did so dramatically. One of the most unexpected and contentious elements of this election was the so-called Trump effect. While Australia has long maintained a proud political independence from the United States, the cultural and ideological influence of America's shifting landscape has become increasingly difficult to ignore. Dutton's campaign, steeped in populist rhetoric and nationalistic overtones, closely mirrored the kind of message that Donald Trump used to secure the U.S. presidency in 2016. Early in the campaign, this strategy seemed to resonate with a section of the Australian electorate, particularly in suburban and rural strongholds. But as Trump's return to American politics brought new waves of policy proposals, most notably his 100-day plan and renewed push for broad tariffs, Australian voters appeared to second-guess the wisdom of embracing a similar course. The economic implications of a protectionist trade agenda hit too close to home. With Australia heavily dependent on global trade, particularly exports of minerals, agriculture, and energy, the fear of retaliatory tariffs or trade wars began to weigh on voters' minds. Dutton's campaign failed to pivot away from the Trumpian mold, and what once seemed like a strength became an anchor pulling him down into electoral defeat. Meanwhile, Anthony Albanese positioned himself as a leader of the future. His campaign focused on a progressive, forward-thinking vision for Australia, one grounded in renewable energy, comprehensive healthcare reform, and cost-of-living relief. These promises struck a deep chord with the Australian public, particularly the younger demographic, which played an unprecedented role in this election. For the first time in Australian history, voters from the millennial and Gen Z generations outnumbered baby boomers at the polls. This generational shift had a profound impact, transforming the electoral landscape and reshaping political strategy. Labour, recognizing this changing tide, leaned heavily into youth-oriented campaigning. Albanese made appearances on popular podcasts, hosted Q&As on social media platforms, and engaged in formats that directly spoke to younger Australians. He emphasized climate action, job creation in green industries, and digital innovation, all topics that resonate with the under-40 electorate. The strategy worked. Not only did younger voters turn out in larger numbers, but they also overwhelmingly backed Labour, tipping key marginal seats and giving the party a broader mandate. On the other side of the aisle, the Conservative Party struggled to connect with the same demographic. In a bizarre attempt to appear culturally in touch, they released diss tracks targeting Labour policies, an effort that backfired spectacularly. Instead of winning hearts and minds, these tactics drew ridicule and alienated the very voters they hoped to attract. Ultimately, the party's approach was seen as out of touch and pandering, with little substance to back it up. Now, with victory in hand, Anthony Albanese faces a monumental task. Winning elections is one thing, governing effectively is another. The public has handed him a clear mandate, but also a heavy burden of expectations. His cost of living relief policies, which gained significant traction during the campaign, must now transition from slogans to action. Australians are grappling with inflation, rising housing costs, and wage stagnation. If Labor fails to deliver, the political winds could shift again just as quickly. Healthcare is another pillar of Albanese's agenda. The promise to reinvest in Australia's public health infrastructure comes at a time when the nation is still reeling from the aftershocks of the COVID-19 pandemic. Hospitals are under strain, rural health services remain underfunded, and mental health support systems are stretched thin. Albanese has pledged to address these challenges head-on with a mix of federal funding, policy innovation, and greater cooperation with states and territories. Delivering on these promises will require deft political navigation as well as substantial public investment. Perhaps Albanese's most ambitious commitment is his promise to embrace renewable energy. Climate change, long a divisive issue in Australian politics, has now become central to public discourse, with bushfires, floods, and heat waves becoming more frequent and severe. Public demand for action is growing louder. The Albanese government has outlined plans to transition away from fossil fuels and position Australia as a renewable energy superpower, investing in solar, wind, and hydrogen technologies. This strategy not only aligns with environmental goals, but also presents a potential economic boom, particularly in regional areas that can host new energy infrastructure. Yet challenges remain. One of the most significant is political fragmentation. While Labor secured a strong majority, nearly one-third of Australians voted for independents or smaller parties. This signals a growing disillusionment with the two-party system and suggests that many voters are seeking alternatives that better reflect their values and priorities. The rise of the so-called teal independents, centrist candidates focused on climate action and political integrity, indicates that future elections may be even less predictable. For the Conservative Party, the road ahead looks uncertain. With Dutton's leadership effectively ended, the party must undergo a comprehensive reevaluation. Who will step forward to lead? Will the party continue to pursue a Trump-style agenda, or will it pivot toward the political center in an effort to recapture lost ground? Rebuilding trust with voters, particularly younger Australians, will be no small feat. The next few months will likely see internal debates, leadership contests, and ideological soul-searching. The Australian electorate has spoken, and its message is clear. It demands competent governance, forward-thinking policies, and authentic engagement with the issues that matter most. Anthony Albanese has proven himself capable of winning elections. Now he must prove that he can lead a nation through a time of complexity and change. The world is watching, and Australia once again finds itself at the forefront of a broader global narrative, one where democracy, leadership, and the voice of the people shape the future in profound and unpredictable ways. The Albanese government's ability to fulfill its promises will determine not just the political legacy of this Prime Minister, but the direction of Australia for decades to come. Will he seize the moment and lead with boldness, or will he falter under the weight of expectation? Only time will tell. But for now, the people have chosen their path, and that path leads forward. Subscribe to my channel, Pulse of the World, for more updates like this.